Hey guys, what's going on? What do you guys think of my mask? Isn't this nice? Oh, just looks like something the pastor would wear, doesn't it? I ordered you guys know I always wear these kind of masks. I ordered a bunch of them, and they threw one in for free, and of course it was this one because it's a bone face, and I, can't really wear it anywhere. So I'm wearing it here for you guys to enjoy tonight. So, all right. I got to get some shout outs here tonight. Hey, Amy, congratulations on being the first comment tonight. Allergies today. Sorry to hear that. Scott Moran, you absolutely are in the right place. Glad you're here, buddy. Hi, Daryl. Good to see you. I hope you enjoyed reading your book this week. Val McAllister, just with your husband upstairs, and we were talking about murdering children in youth group tonight. We were looking at the story of Abraham and Isaac going up the mountain. And, well, you should definitely ask Sean about that. He had some comments to say. Teresa Bitters, glad to have you tonight. Hey, Trina, I just talked to you on the phone like 10 minutes ago. I hope everything's been good since then. Hi, Dave Jessen. How you doing? Angie Myers. Yeah, summer's out of here in spectacular fashion tonight, that's for sure. Crystal Dove, how you doing? Hey, Sue's all the way from Utah. Wow, I didn't even know they had the internet in Utah. Utah? I thought you were going to Idaho. Anyways, Utah, so good. Hope you're having a good time. Amy, thanks, Teresa. Hi, Beth Reedy. Hey, Teresa Bitters is on there again. Scott Moran, here we go. Who else we got here? Tim and Candy in the house. Glad to have you guys. Scott Moran. People don't know Utah can be beautiful. Yes, I know Utah can be beautiful. I've never been there, but I've seen pictures. Trick or treat with the mask on. Hey, if I'm trick or treating, somebody better give me some candy. So, yes, Val, make sure you ask Scott about group tonight. And Susan's mom says hello. Hi, Christina. Hope you had a good day too. All right, I've made my point with this. Done with that. Whew, can't really breathe in that thing. So, all right, this is going too. It's warm in here. So cool. All right. So what'd you guys think of chapter 2? Everybody jump in the comments. For those of you who have the book, and if you don't have it, don't worry about it. But for those of you who have the book, I'd like to know. What? No, I don't want to do that. Tell me what you thought of the book. Where's airplane mode? Putting my tablet in airplane mode so it doesn't start talking to me. You guys enjoy chapter 2? Plug my phone in. Is anybody talking on here tonight? Anybody gonna talk? Nobody's talking tonight? All right, you guys can just be that way. So no ordinary night. I think that goes without saying. Not many nights the night sky gets lit up with the chorus of angels and all the stuff that's going on. But you got to realize back in the day it was, for the most part, ordinary. And nothing worth writing home about. I guess everything is ordinary until it's not ordinary. Hold on here. I forgot to do this. Oh, that's better. That way I'm not going to get a crank in my neck before this is over. Good. So you guys are being a little slow in the comments tonight. I'm going to need you guys to talk some because we're going to have a discussion, not a sermon. You want a sermon? Come on Sunday. We're going to talk about hey, that's something I can ask you. Anybody got any comments from Hosea last week? Anybody get introduced to a new Bible book you've not heard much about? The book of Hosea is not something we work with a whole lot, and I had a pretty good time kind of working with Hosea and what he had going on. So anybody learn anything? Feel like I was right now. Oh, right there. It is right now, Marge. Yeah, good. Yeah, right there. And the lag must be really bad tonight. Is the feed okay? Somebody tell me if the feed's okay. This thing working. All right. Okay. One of the things, okay, good, because you guys' comments are really slow tonight, which is okay. Okay, that's all right, Beth. We'll catch you up. Okay, good. So here's my opening question. For those of you who have the book, I'm on page, of course, the page numbers aren't on my thing anymore. I'm on page 13. And one of the things that gets me is the very first sentence. He says, one word describes the night he finally came, meaning Christmas Eve. Describes the night he finally came, ordinary. Again, we're kind of used to the Christmas story because we've all heard it a gazillion times. And it's probably one of the most famous stories in, well, like ever. So it's one we're real familiar with, and it's one that we hear a lot. And so the idea of it being ordinary is, well, ordinary. We understand that. But here's my question. Think about the whole gospel. Think about Jesus's whole story and everything that happened. How does the gospel change if this is not an ordinary night? If it's anything other than ordinary. You know, if the story is anything other than ordinary. Now, look, I understand that stars in the sky leading foreigners to come see him, and the chorus of angels that brought the shepherds, and obviously there's some things not normal going on here, but the whole world missed that. I mean, think about that. There was so much going on at the birth of Jesus. The wise men traveled from way far away, and were coming from a great distance. So they were traveling through towns, they were traveling through provinces, and they met people along the way, and there were fellow travelers and it took them a while to get there. All through these towns, and the wise men are the only ones who came. No one else did. On the other hand, you got the shepherds. Now remember the story. When Mary and Joseph showed up to register for the census, which I think we're going to talk about that a little bit, they arrive in Bethlehem. Bethlehem is so full. Now get this, and I'm not making this up. It's so full, they don't have room for a 9-month, 6-day, 23-hour pregnant lady. They don't have room for her. That, my friends, is full. That is literally as full as a town can get. So in this town that is literally filled to the max, that even a pregnant lady can't find a place to stay. And, she has a baby in a barn because there's no room. So you got the wise men traveling all this way following a star. They couldn't have been the only one that saw the star. Everyone else had to see it too. You got a city so full that even the pregnant lady can't find a place to get inside. And yet there were angels singing, stars shining, shepherds traveling to worship, wise men coming to honor and give gifts. And you're telling me, out of all that, the only people who showed up there were the dirty shepherds and the foreign wise men. My question is, where in the heck was everyone else? That's a lot of people to miss what's going on here. If something this spectacular happened literally in their backyard, and all this stuff's happening, angels singing, stars shining, wise men gift giving, shepherds praising, where was everyone else? How did everyone miss that? Because you got to admit, that's a lot to miss, right? And somehow, though, they all did. They all missed what was going on. So I got a question for you. What was everyone doing? What was everyone doing that they missed the birth of the Lord, even though there was a star that wise men from a long ways away managed to follow, and there was a city so full with angels flying through the sky and singing? Everybody missed it, except for the handful of shepherds and 3 or so wise men. What was everyone doing? that caused them to miss the world getting changed forever? Because that's what they missed. I mean, that's what they missed. What were they doing? I mean, I know there's no right answer or no wrong answer. Yeah, it's a question with no right answer because that's the only kind I ask. No, there's no wrong answer to this question. I'm just asking you to think about it. What were they? What do you think? I'm asking you to speculate. What the heck were they doing that they missed literally the most important thing that's happened, ever? Okay, Candy says, sounds like everyone was thinking only themselves if they can't give up their room for a pregnant lady. I think that obviously goes without saying. And I know, Candy, you got a real heart for that. Christina says lost in their own lives. I think that's, I mean, they had other stuff happening. Worry about their own business. I think that's the same thing. Scott, Christine on the same page there. I got other stuff happening. Teresa says if his birth was public and the ruler who was looking to kill him and have found him, maybe it was a good thing it wasn't publicized. Maybe. I also think, though, I mean, I can certainly see that. But I also think, Teresa, that the idea could be that if everyone was kind of in on what was going on, I don't think they would have allowed Caesar to make that decision. And we can debate that because obviously it didn't happen, so we don't know. But and maybe there was a protection thing going on. That's as good an interpretation as any. Val Cisco says busy with their own self. I think they had things that were important to them going on. Marge says everyone was too involved in their own lives to be concerned with anything. Gotcha. Trina says kind of what happens today. You get lost in all the activities, job, family, and not see what's right in front of you. So I guess my next question is, since all these people, and there are bunches of them, in all those towns the wise men passed through, and in all those people who were in Bethlehem that night with the singing angels, did we sometimes get caught up in that? That's one of those questions where we're like, dang, he's got us. But look, I do. I get caught up in what's going on. I get caught up in what's happening, and I think that's what Max is getting here to, and we'll get this to the discussion here, is, it was so ordinary, and the problem is what was ordinary was routine. It was mundane. It was no big deal. And at the end of the day, they all missed the chance to go kneel in front of a feeding trough and praise the Lord in the flesh. That's what they missed. And I guess I don't know if we often think of the Christmas story as a story of warning, but it is. Be very careful. Marge and the two Valeries there. Be careful about that. And look, I've done it too. Look, everybody's done it. But you want to be careful about getting so caught up in your own self that you miss something God's doing right in front of you. And that happens. It happens to all of us. And I do this professionally. I'm a trained professional, and I still miss stuff along the way. And almost makes you wonder that as Jesus started to grow up and his reputation began to increase, there were people that go, I remember that census, and I remember being in Bethlehem that night, but I don't remember no angels or stars or wise men or shepherds. I don't remember any of that. And the reason they don't remember it is because they weren't paying attention. It wasn't because it didn't happen. It's because they weren't paying attention, and they missed out on something that I think we all would agree would have been pretty incredible to see. So, yeah, interesting. So he goes through, okay, so going back to the book here. Max Lucado goes through a list of things that were notable. He said it was a beautiful night. Were any of you outside last night? I mean, I was at youth group when the sun went down, so I'm at the church now, but I'll be outside in a minute. But I know last night I went down the bike trail, down the towpath. It was probably like after 8 o'clock last night. I was out running. It was beautiful. Any of you see it last night? The moon was full, and there were some clouds going in front of it. It was a gorgeous night last night, if any of you were outside. And I remember the only reason I know that, the only reason I can tell you that now is because I had two meetings in Walpock yesterday morning, and I wasn't able to go out and run, so I didn't go out and run till last night. And it was after 8 o'clock when I finally got home and trying to get everything together. And I went running down the towpath, and it's amazing. I got away from my my routine, what I would normally have done. And once I got out there, I thought, wow, it's gorgeous out here. And it was. The sky was beautiful, and the weather was nice. It was crispy cool, but not cold, not like this morning. And I'd have completely missed that had I not been out there. Had I just went home and flipped on the presidential debate, and God knows that was depressing. I would have missed that. But instead, I went out there and I was really blessed. It was really nice night to be outside. And Val says it was beautiful tonight driving home for Shawnee. Okay. I'm going to be outside. Me and the Beetle are going to be going home shortly after this live stream, and I'm looking forward to that because the last night was just so pretty. Teresa, look for miracles in the mundane. We've all those opportunities. I'm sure we all have. And we got the miracles, the miraculous, and the mundane. And then Teresa says we got the message and the mess. We got tonight's episode is sponsored by the letter M, and so yeah, that's great. But so that's something we need to watch out for, because again, that is exactly what all these people did in Bethlehem. Missed what was going on because they were too busy. Last night, I would have missed that gorgeous night had I just went home and flipped on the presidential debate and cried into my pillow, which is what I ended up doing. It was just much better to be outside. Of course, a lot would have been better than that. Okay, enough of that. All right, let's turn the page here. So ordinary. So he talks about the ordinary beautiful night. I don't know why my page numbers are not. Where are my page numbers at? Doggone it. Anyways, I can't get my. All right, I'm on page 13. It says the sheep were ordinary. The shepherds were ordinary. He says there on page 13, he says, an ordinary night with ordinary sheep and ordinary shepherds. There was not, and this, I love this sentence. I'm going to steal the sentence and I'm going to use it in a sermon sometime. And I need all y'all to think, wow, Tim is brilliant that he came up with this. I need you to forget that I'm going to point this out right now. Okay. So if you guys could help me out, that'd be awesome. Here it is. An ordinary night with ordinary sheep and ordinary shepherds. And were it not for a God who loved to hook an extra in front of the word ordinary, the night would have gone unnoticed. A God who hooks an extra on the front of ordinary to make extraordinary. That's a great line. That's a great line. And I'm going to give that to you for free, even though I didn't come up with it. That's a great line. Isn't it awesome to believe and serve a God who puts an extra on the beginning of ordinary, takes ordinary and hooks an extra to it? I think that's a great line, and I marked that because I wanted to make sure I put that out there to you. So the God who puts an extra on the ordinary. He says but God dances amid the common, and that night he did a waltz. That night I did a waltz. I took a social dance class when I was a senior at Ohio Northern, and I stepped on a lot of girls' toes in that. And so I hope that none of them ever read this book, because that might bring back like PTSD for them. But I don't know if any of you ever done ballroom dancing and stuff. That's a beautiful thing. And oh dear, look out here. All right. So now I'm flipping over to page 14. T-shirt idea. I don't know if I can put that on a T-shirt because it's not my words. It's Max Lucado's. Would the shepherds have noticed if the angels had not announced to them? Clearly, they would not have, Tim. I honestly believe the only reason that they were there is they were responding to the shepherds. The shepherds responding to the angels. Sorry. I think that's the only reason the shepherds showed up, is because the angels announced it. But I don't know that the angels that were announcing it specifically to the shepherds. I think they were just announcing it. I mean, I'm thinking about how we do announcements in the church. The announcements are for everyone. Even if it's like, okay, we're going to have youth group on Wednesday night. We're going to be here from 6 to 7:30. Even if youth doesn't apply to you, or you're not going to be there for that, the announcement still is out there for you. And I think the angels were the same way. They were making an announcement. The announcement was for everybody who wanted to listen to it or pay attention to it or respond to it. But the announcement was made whether you were going to respond to it or not. So I don't know that the angels, specifically were just like, okay, guys, let's fire up this musical number, but only for the shepherds, nobody else. I don't think that's how that worked. I think that the announcement was made, just only the shepherds said, maybe we ought to go see this thing. So, yeah, the shepherds were not busy with busy stuff and heard that. That's right, Marge. Obviously, the shepherds did hear them. I mean, that's indisputable. But they also responded. I guess the question is that we need to ask ourselves is, are they the only ones who heard them? Now, again, the Gospels don't tell us anything about that, so we have to speculate. But I think there's a very good case to be made that everybody heard it, just the shepherds are the only one did anything about it. And now the shepherds, who are not named, are immortalized in our gospel because they responded. They heard the singing and said, we got to go see this thing. And because of that, they are now a part of the greatest story ever told. So that's what everyone else missed out on. That's the point I'm trying to make here. That's the point Max, I think, is trying to make, is that because they were willing to do something about what they saw, do something about what they witnessed, do something about what they experienced, they're willing to respond. I mean, their lives were changed. They went from skeptical to absolute believer in just moments. And as any of you who've had an experience of Christ will know, that moment of transformation is, well, it's life altering, and that's exactly what they experienced. Tim says, but maybe God had the angels call in specific people for a special reason. The wise men brought financial support that Mary and Joseph would need to escape to Egypt before the slaughter. I mean, maybe. Again, it's all speculation. I don't know why. I mean, again, and I'm only giving my opinion here. I don't know why you would have something as awesome as the birth of the Son of God happen and not announce it to everyone, or at least give everyone a chance to do something about it. It'd be like having a birthday party but only inviting one friend, or having a graduation party and only inviting 4 people. The purpose of these things is we want everybody to come by and be a part of that. And so again, yeah, I mean that could very well be, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem to me like that's the way God operates. It seems like God is one who, especially when something like that happens, wants everyone to be aware of it and a part of what's going on. So, all right. So on this ordinary night that is just normal, nothing bad, but nothing particularly noteworthy, God comes along and hooks an extra on ordinary, and here's how he does it. I'm on page 14. The black sky exploded with brightness. I mean, I can remember one time I was driving to seminary, back when I was in seminary in the late 90s. And I was driving from my student pastor parish was in Fort Recovery, which I know a number of you here know where Fort Recovery is. And I was driving I drove down past Greenville to Dayton, where I was going to seminary. I don't know what happened, okay? But one day, right outside of Dayton, driving into Dayton, there was a long straightaway. I mean, it must have been, I don't know how far it was, 15 miles, where this road was just straight. In fact, when I would get on that section of road going into Dayton, you could look and be like, okay, that's where we're going to turn. And it was like 20 miles down the road, just the straightest stretch of highway. And I was driving down there one morning. It wasn't terribly early, but it was getting ready to thunderstorm. So it was dark. I mean, not black, but it was darker than, it was darker than normal. And I was driving down there, and I don't know what happened. To this day, I don't know what happened, but something exploded at the end of the road. So I'm, 10 miles away, and something exploded at the end of the road and lit up everything that it burned my eyes. I mean, I had a flash in front of my eyes. And I could see it. It would start out real small, and it would get bigger until I was blinded. I mean, it was crazy. And I would go like this, and it would only last for a second, and it would go away. It went away. And then all of a sudden, I'd be driving along there, and then I would see it again. It would start out real small, and it would, to the point it was like I had to shield my eyes. I was 10 miles away. That happened like 3 or 4 times. I imagine. Again, I don't know if it was a transformer blowing up. I don't know what it was, but it was a sight to behold, let me tell you. But I almost imagine that's what it was like when the shepherds were out there, because whenever you're in the dark and your eyes are kind of acclimated to the dark, and then somebody flips on a light or something, you're like, whoa, gosh, and you can't hardly see for a minute. That's the experience I imagine the shepherds had. So they're out there in the dark because, again, nobody had flashlights or anything, so maybe they had a fire going. And if you've ever been around a campfire, campfires are cool, but it's not like tons of light. So they were, with the fire going and stuff, and they're kind of, doing one of these things, and all of a sudden that happened where it starts out real small, and then the whole thing just brights up. That's what I imagine happened that night, and then all of a sudden they were singing with it and all this stuff. What I'm trying to get to with this is God definitely got those shepherds' attention. I mean, there was no doubt that they were like, "Oh my heavens, something here is going on." So they were, they witnessed this bright light, and they hear the singing, and they're like, obviously this is not typical. This is not something normal. This is something out of the ordinary. So they're like, y'all, maybe we better pay attention to this. So they're kind of paying attention to that, and all of a sudden they're like, Hosanna in the highest, glory to God. All these angelic choruses, and they're like, you want to point this out? We might want to go see that. So it indicated the barn where this happened, and then that's when they went to see it. And that, my friends, is one example of how God hooks an extra onto an ordinary. And took something that would have been, something none of them even remembered a day after it happened to something they absolutely would never forget. And 2,000 years later, we're still reading their story. Why? Because God cut through the darkness and shone a great light. And the shepherds were like, we got to go see this thing. And they went out to see it. So, okay, I got comments over here I missed. Candy says, precisely, but no one paid attention. That's right. Even though it would have been tough. I mean, again, I'm making the analogy, but that would have been a tough thing to miss is this light and music. Val says, my hometown. Was that Greenville? Was your hometown or Dayton, Val? Scott says, took folk dancing at ONU. Yeah, I took ballroom dancing at ONU. It was a blast. I had a lot of fun with it, but I was really terrible at it. And Val says, a fireball. Again, it was something. I don't know what it was. And Tim says, if God wanted to announce the birth to as many as possible, why not have Jesus born in the middle of Jerusalem or Rome where millions could witness it? First of all, there was no city of millions at that time, Tim, but, they were in Bethlehem, the city of David. It was Roman occupied. And that was to keep with the Old Testament, prophecies about that. So they were fulfilling what was going to go on there. And God, keeping with his word, that's how he made it happen. But that's how it works. And, I think that he did want people to witness it, just nobody came to see it. And if the sky lit up and all this stuff, and remember the wise men, they knew what was going on from a couple of countries away. So it wasn't like the announcement wasn't made far and wide. It's just only a few people decided to respond to it. And Val, Fort Recovery. I was in Fort Recovery from 1998 to 2000, and I was the pastor of the two little Methodist churches there, Fort Recovery and Erastus, and had a good time there. I enjoyed my time in Fort Recovery. Okay, so the dark gave away to dawn. So this great thing that happened. I'm still on page 14. So darkness gave way to dawn. Okay, so the angels singing and all that stuff that happened in the middle of the night, that's subsided by morning apparently. And remember, again, and you got to keep this in mind because this affects the story. The city was so full, there's no room for a pregnant lady. That is as full as a city can get. So as the sun starts to come up, you can imagine the place is chaos. I guess this is a bad example now, but back in the day, 10 years ago, when people used to actually go to the store and shop, think Black Friday. Okay, that's what it was like. Back when Black Friday used to be, back when people would go stab each other over a Game Boy or something. But think about that. I mean, there's not enough food, there's not enough space, there's not any privacy, there's not any nothing. So, in all this chaos, and this poor little girl, Mary, just had a baby in a freaking barn in the middle of all this. That's the chaos they're getting up to. And so Mary picks up Jesus out of the feeding trough so the animals don't eat him or whatever. And that's where they are. And so understand the fullness of Bethlehem, just how packed the city is, and how much of just a nightmare that would have been. So okay. Now think about in all the chaos of the next day. Okay, so think about this. In the chaos of the next day, we've already established that everyone missed the star, they missed the singing angels, and they missed the flashing lights and all the stuff. They missed all that. But one thing that they, at least not everybody missed, most people did, but not everybody, is the fact that the night before, there was a young girl getting ready to have a kid, and came to the innkeeper, who said, "I'm sorry." I mean, I hope he was that polite. Sent him out to the barn. Makes you wonder if anybody went out the next day to check, see if they were okay. I mean, it's pretty harsh that they couldn't even do something for her. But he talks about that a little later on page 14. He said, did anyone mention the arrival of the young couple the night before? Did anyone ask about their welfare? Did anybody take them out anything to eat? Maybe go make sure they had enough blankets that night? You know? I mean, again, the place is packed. Somebody's got to know they're out there, or at least somebody's got to know they were there at some point. You know, somebody's got to know that, they were turned away so everybody could keep their comfy room. Everybody has to know that. And makes you wonder. I mean, they missed the angels and the star, but I wonder if they had any compassion. I mean, I'm not saying they didn't. Maybe they did, and that's not recorded, which very well could have happened. But again, it just makes us wonder how much tunnel vision. And again, I'm convicting myself on this. How much tunnel vision we get sometimes to not see, what literally could be right in front of us. And apparently no good Samaritan. That's true. Yeah, that is true. Who came and paid for the parable of the Good Samaritan, where the Samaritan pulled the guy out of the ditch and paid for his room and took care of him and all that stuff. Yeah. Actually, that story would have meant a lot to Jesus, given what he knew about his own parents and what they went through. Yeah. The other thing that Max says here that I had actually not considered before is it is highly likely that Mary and Joseph were not the only people turned away that night. Now, I'm not saying everybody was, 9 months and 3 weeks pregnant at that time, or 8 months and 3 weeks pregnant at that time. I'm not saying that, but, there were probably other people around places, perhaps even in the barn with them. Maybe they were in one stable and somebody else was in a different one. That's... There were probably other, in fact, I'm sure there were other displaced people who were trying to figure out what to do and had spent the night outside. And was anyone concerned about any of them? Yeah. And one of the other things that Max brings up is not only the fact, were there other families, which, I mean, there undoubtedly were, was think about the economy of Bethlehem. It was a sleepy little town. It wasn't a major metropolitan center by any stretch of the imagination. But all these people coming in, ate all the food, shopped up all the restaurants, took all the spaces, and every available space was rented out. So the economy's doing real good. All the storekeepers and everybody's real happy with how this is turning out, because a lot of money would have came into Bethlehem through all of this. And, all those people who were missing the show that was going on in the sky the night before are the same people who are off to the side and counting their money. And it just, it's important for us to keep into context what all was going on, because there was a lot happening around Jesus's birth, and all of this would have had an effect on the situation. It would have had an effect on Mary and Joseph, which eventually would have had an effect on Jesus, and how all these things go. So it would have been a very, I guess poignant is the word I'm looking for. A very poignant experience for all of them. Teresa says, would Mary have been seen as untouchable with just having the baby? Maybe the customs had to keep a safe. Yeah, I mean, that could very well have been. She would have been ceremonially unclean, I think, for 7 days after giving birth to a son. 7 days. I don't know. I think it's something like that. But yeah, I mean that would have been something. But you would hope that somebody would have had some compassion on this young couple. You hope somewhere along the way somebody would have done that. And we all like to, I think a lot of times we read the story and go, if I'd have been there, I'd have, whatever. Would you have? Would I have? I like to think I would have. I don't know. It's a challenge. The Christmas story seen through this light, through this lens, is a challenging story. Okay. So Max goes on to talk a little bit more about the particular stable they were in. All the busyness and distraction and noise and everything else that was going on. Any of you who have ever been in a barn in your life know that they're not the best smelling places in the world, and Max makes this pretty clear. He says, the stench of urine, dung, and sheep reeks pungently in the air. I think that's probably as polite of a statement as we could make about the smell of the place. The ground is hard, the hay is scarce, cobwebs cling to the ceiling, and a mouse scurries along the dirt floor. I guess we weren't worried about viruses and infection and cleanliness and things, and just it was a very difficult situation, and thank God Mary and Joseph and Jesus all made it through good. And you also have to realize, and this is something else you may want to think about, is Mary and Joseph were visitors. Okay, they were from out of town. They had came into Bethlehem to register for the census. They obviously didn't live in Bethlehem. Their families were not from Bethlehem. I mean, their ancestral families were from Bethlehem. But they obviously didn't live in Bethlehem, because if they had family, this whole story would have went very, very differently. So there is no reason to think in this world that Joseph didn't shake hand and meet these shepherds for the very first time this night. Now, it wasn't like his three best buddies, were coming in here and he'd known them for years. This is a man in a strange place, in a barn, with his, fiance who just had a baby, wrapping the baby up and laying him in a feeding trough, and a bunch of strangers came in and said, "Hey, we'd like to see what's going on here." I'm trying to imagine, there's a reason why, and I know coronavirus, but even if coronavirus wasn't a thing, when Phil and Leah had Maggie in the hospital, there's a reason why I didn't run up there that day to go in and see them. Obviously, COVID was part of that, but I don't belong there. I certainly celebrate with them, and I'm very happy for them and everything else, but I don't need to be present there to be happy with them. And, and they know me. They know exactly who I am. And, I'm sure they would have welcomed me in and whatever, but I didn't belong there, so I didn't go. I can imagine that, if Phil is standing at the room and Leah and his child and Maggie are in there, and three strangers said, "Hey, we'd like to come in and see the baby," and they don't have any hospital identification, pretty sure Phil's going to be like, "Yeah, not now. Thanks, but no." Because that's exactly what he should say. Yet here in this situation, Joseph invited these strangers in. Again, that's not an ordinary thing to do. And, allow these shepherds to come in. I think that's part of the evidence that Joseph was very aware that there was something he knew there was something very, very special about this child. But I think that's evidence that he allowed the shepherds in, because I just don't know too many men who become a father for the first time and they're like, totally cool with these strangers coming in and oogling my wife and poking my son. And I don't see that being a typical reaction. So March says, if at all possible, I like to stay away from barns. Probably good advice for the old nasal cavity. Scott Moran, I think it went just as God wanted it to. Jesus didn't enter as a conquering king yet. And that's true. When we get on to, and I think I haven't read this whole book yet, but I'm pretty sure in the later chapters, we'll get to talk about that return a little bit. And yes, you're right. The return will be a little different. So, okay. I'm turning over to page 16. And I hope our pages are the same. If you look at page 16, there's a paragraph that says, near the young mother sits the weary father. Okay, I'm in that paragraph. I'm going to the paragraph directly before that one, and I'm reading the last sentence. So hear this sentence. God goes to those who have time to hear him. So on this cloudless night, he went to simple shepherds. We have you guys have done an awesome job of clearly articulating this. There were a lot of people there that night who just didn't have time. They were too caught up and who knows what else. So they completely missed this. So God continued to go out further and further till he got somebody who was willing to respond. My question here is, and then I'm going to get to Trina's comment here. My question here is what does it say about us? What advice does that give to us? If God is going out to find those who will listen and who will respond, what lesson does that teach us? You guys get in there and comment on that. I'm going to answer Trina and Tim's question here. Joseph knew this was a child of God and figured he would be protected. Again, that's what we would hope. But young fathers don't always think that way. I'm sure he's feeling very responsible for what's happening here, even though he was not responsible for it, but he was certainly the only person Mary had on her side at that point. So Tim says, I always wonder why more of their family did not have to too, since the reason they went was to report where their family was from. All right, this is a whole different wormhole, a whole different rabbit hole we're going to go down here. So I'm not going to go too far down this, but I'm just going to say Mary and Joseph would have been disowned through this. They would have lost their entire family. Pregnancy outside of marriage was just not a thing back in those days. And if it became a thing, it was considered a disgrace and they would have been disowned. So it's not surprising that they had no family to go with. Other family members may have even been in Bethlehem, may have been occupying some of those rooms in the hotel that Mary couldn't get into. But makes that scenario a whole lot more sad to know what they lost through this. And there's a reason why none of the rest of Mary and Joseph's family are ever mentioned. Anyway, we have no idea who Mary's father was or mother. We don't know. We know even less about Joseph and what happened there. So that's a very sad part of the Christmas story. Therese says we need to be more aware of God's nudges and be willing to listen and follow through. I think that's always pretty good advice. All right. Being aware of nudges, friends. What is it? What lesson does it teach us to say that night that God went to those who were willing to hear? Those who had time to hear. Those who had time to respond. Those who had the perception to see what was happening. I mean, there's a lot to say about that. But I maintain that there were a heck of a lot of people who knew something happened and for whatever reason did nothing. And because they did nothing, they missed out on this great thing. And again, I know we don't normally look at the Christmas story as a warning because we look at the good stuff, and we should. I mean, I'm not saying we need to, make the dark side of the Christmas story. That's not at all what I'm talking about here. But I am saying that there is a warning in this passage, one that we do well to heed, about being too busy to notice that God's up to something and what we could conceivably miss when we don't take time to be aware of what God is doing. We miss a lot. So, all right. One of the things that Max says here, and he says on page where am I here? Page 16 is any of you who have ever been around a teenage girl, this sentence I'm about to read should absolutely frighten you half to death. Think about that first Christmas night. The birth of Jesus, and this amazing thing has happened, and everybody's confused, and everybody's trying to figure out, and a whole bunch of people are not paying attention. So in all this scenario and all this stuff happening, Max writes this sentence. He says, at this point in human history, when Mary and Joseph are there with the manger and the shepherds and wise men and angels and animals and a feeding trough and all these things, at that moment, that night, at this point in human history, the human being who best understands who God is and what God is doing is a teenage girl in a smelly stable If that sentence doesn't scare you half to death, look, teenage girls are awesome, but holding it together and being on top of things, let's just be frank, not really their strength. And teenagers in general, but teenage girls especially. But at that moment, Mary was it. She was the only one who got it. I mean, even Joseph, yeah, he's had been visited by a couple of angels and he's been brought up to speed. But the person who is at the front of this is a little girl named Mary. If that doesn't move you to realize the power of the ordinary, how God hooks the extra to ordinary, that God could use this just absolutely insane situation to create the salvation of the entire world. There's a reason why we call grace amazing. The reason that's the song, because that is an amazing I'm at a loss for words. Amazing procedure, an amazing turn of events to be able to create this thing. Do we know approximately how old Mary was? I've heard estimates as low as 13. And yeah, don't forget about we three kings. We three kings of Orient are bearing gifts. We travel so far, westward leading, still proceeding. That's the three wise men. And the importance of our listening and responding. That's right. That's what we need to do. Because again, that's what makes the difference in the story. Imagine. Let's just look at Mary. Let's just look at Mary real quick. Suppose Mary had ignored Gabriel when he came to kind of give a little explanation of what was going to happen. Imagine how confused that poor girl would have been. I mean, I'm not going to take it any farther than that, but just imagine how shocking that would have been if the angel had been like, "Hey, Mary, I'm here to talk to you about what God's doing." And Mary's like, "I ain't got time for you. Let's talk to the hand, right?" And Gabriel's like, "No, I'm pretty sure you're gonna want to know what I have to say." And she's like, "No, I'm texting and I'm doing girl stuff, whatever that is, and I don't have time." And Gabriel's like, "No, I really, really think you're gonna listen to what I have to say." But if she hadn't been listening, man, this whole thing could have went amazingly different. But because she was willing to pay attention, changed the whole thing. I mean, from disaster, I don't know what other word to use, but because she was willing to pay attention, because she was willing to listen, which again, teenagers aren't the only one who struggle with the listening thing. She was able to be aware of what's going on. And God chose Mary for her character and who he created her to be. Well, Teresa, that's probably true, but I could make that argument about any of us. And if God chose, this guy because of my character and who he created me to be, that implies that I have to live up to something. I can't coast through life. I can't, do my own thing and just expect God to, God, if God, needs something, he'll text me. That's not how this works. I need to be in tune with what God is doing. So even if I have been created for a purpose, which I have been, just like everyone else, I have a purpose for my life, and you have a purpose for your life. But you can absolutely miss that purpose completely for not paying attention. And Mary is no different. So yes, she had some character. She had some strength. Obviously, she had a great thing. What was going on? But if she doesn't listen, none of that character or anything else makes any difference. And that's an important thing to see. Three wise men weren't there that night, noticed the star and on their way. Yes, the wise men didn't show up till sometime later. Jesus was like 2, I think, when they finally showed up. Which, okay, here's Pastor Tim making everybody angry. Your Hallmark nativity scene never happened. The Hallmark nativity scene with the angel on the top and the shepherds on one side and the wise men on the other never happened. The wise men and the shepherds never met each other. Sorry. The wise men didn't show up till years later. So, because they were traveling, bearing gifts, they travel so far. Y'all remember the song, right? They didn't get there till sometime later. So, yes, Hallmark made a nice little nativity scene that we all love so much. Never happened. You'll also understand that even biblically, the shepherds and wise men are not mentioned in the same book. The shepherds come from the book of Luke, and the wise men come from the book of Matthew. So they don't even meet in the Gospels. So sorry to shoot that one for you, but nativity scenes are still beautiful, and I love them. However, not exactly biblical. All the pieces are there, but the pieces come from different places. So Pastor Tim Benjamin at gmail.com if you want to send me a hate mail about that, but that's just the truth. So, all right. Okay. All right, I'm going to read the last. Hallmark condensed the story. That's right. Hallmark did the Reader's Digest thing where they kind of shrunk it down and put it into a nice little thing that they could sell you for $49.95. All right, I'm going to read the very last paragraph. Ready? God's nature would not hold him in heaven; it led him to earth. In God's great gospel, he not only sends, but he also becomes. He not only looks down, but he also lives among. He not only talks to us, but he also lives with us as one of us. God with us. Bonus question to all my good scholars out there tonight. What is the Greek name that means God with us? Can anybody tell me? What is the name that means God with us? Emmanuel. Very good, Candy. I knew you or Scott Moran was going to get that one. Emmanuel. And it could be spelled with an E or an I. Either one are acceptable. But that's right. Emmanuel means God with us. And that's what the song says, and that's what it is. And in fact, my very first church I ever served in Elida back from 96 to 99 was Emmanuel United Methodist Church in Elida, Ohio. So, yes, and that's what it is. God stepped into our situation. And he didn't step into our situation with a silver spoon in his mouth. He came probably with some straw in his mouth, honestly. And, dirty and smelly, stinky animals and weird shepherds and later wise men who probably didn't speak the same language as him. And kings tried to kill him and everything else. That's how God hooks the extra on the ordinary and makes things different. All right, guys, we got 5 minutes. I need feedback. You guys enjoying this book? Because we're going to do chapter 3 next week, and that will finish this up on section 1. So the Word became flesh. It'll be next week. You guys enjoying this study? Pretty good numbers tonight. We've had between 26 and 30 all night. So, you're enjoying it, Amy. Thank you. All right. Well, we'll probably stick with one chapter a week. I think that gives us enough content. I told you, Beth. If any of you who are unfamiliar with Max Lucado, he is the master of what he does, and says it more beautifully than any of the rest of us could do it. So. Good. Thanks, Ange. Thanks, Christina. Teresa, thanks. Marge, thanks. Yeah. And I'm very happy for any of you who are here tonight who were not familiar with Max Lucado. It is a great privilege of mine to be able to introduce him to you because he is the master with the pen. So thanks, Dave. Thanks, Teresa. Or thanks, Trina. Thanks, Val. So, all right, good. Well, I got just a couple minutes. Oh, thanks, Suze. I'm glad you and your mom both are enjoying it. I got just a couple minutes here. Let me throw something else out at you. And wow. Val McCallum, I'm enjoying it. I was getting caught up, and a few of the things have caught me off guard and made me realize that Max Lucado's exit writer. Listen to him is even better. That's probably true. If you could get this book an audio book feature, I can, especially if you get one read by Max. I don't know if that one even exists, but yeah, he's very talented at what he does. He turns a phrase better than anybody, and his writing is very, very good. So, all right, we got 5 minutes. For 5 minutes, I'm willing to entertain any topic you want to throw out there, because I'm gonna give you your full hour. So I'm not going to cheat you out with just 55 minutes. So this is your chance, everybody. Take your pot shots at Pastor Tim. Who wants to know something? Put it in the comments. It's your big opportunity. Don't be shy. I know you all want to take a shot at me. Let's do it. Nobody? Why do Catholics pray to Mary? Teresa asked. Catholics pray to Mary because they have a very elevated view of God. Their idea of God coming to us is not exactly similar to the way we Protestants see it, and they believe that God is so holy that they needed another intermediary. And the doctrine of papal infallibility, which means when the Pope speaks on behalf of Scripture, he speaks without error. And the only time that doctrine, at least as of a few years ago, and I don't know about recently, the only time the doctrine of papal infallibility has ever been used is when one of the popes, and I'm sorry, I don't remember which one it was, said that Mary was assumed into heaven. She did not die. Now, we do not have a death story of Mary in the Gospels. That's just not mentioned. So she was assumed into heaven, and now she is like functions much like the saints do. And it's an intermediary. It's basically be like on Sunday morning, somebody goes to Doug Whitling and says, "Hey, will you tell Tim he needs to, not talk so fast?" And then Doug will come down and tell me, say, "Tim, you need to slow down." That's kind of how the saints work. You can say, "Hey, on my behalf, will you go ask God to heal my sick family member?" And then that person would that saint would go on to God to speak to him. That's why they do that. We Protestants are like, well, you know what the Holy Spirit does, and that's where we Protestants are. So we basically just replaced the saints with the Holy Spirit as our intermediary. And as you can imagine, we Protestants are much happier with that. My feelings on the debate. Have any of you ever been to a kindergarten and watched two toddlers fight over a toy? That was the debate last night. It was two people screaming at each other. It would basically be like watching the Swedish Chef from the Muppets fight with Chewbacca from Star Wars. If you would imagine those two in an argument, that is exactly what this was. It was the Swedish Chef versus Chewbacca, and I had no idea what the heck was going on. And I hope for better at the next debate. So that's my feelings on the debate. Is I was watching the Swedish Chef argue with Chewbacca, which is actually a hilarious analogy that I got from someone else, but it's so funny I have to give it here. So, yeah, Val Cisco says it was ridiculous. It was. I felt like watching my children argue a fight and saying I didn't do anything. He did. Yeah, we need to pray for both sides. Yes, we need to pray for everybody in this process because it's going to be a mess. And I wrote my newspaper article for next Monday. I wrote it on the purpose of the Supreme Court and why the Supreme Court, why the judicial branch of the government exists at all. And boy, that idea of appointing justices to the Supreme Court and all that stuff, there's a reason why they fight so hard for that. And it's because the judicial system is meant to be a check and balance. And boy, nobody wants anybody else putting checks and balances on them. Ooh, boy. And that's why we got to fight. Teresa, you missed the debate. I actually have a little more respect for you now knowing that, so good for you. Christina says, perfect description. I would rather watch the Swedish Chef and Chewbacca fight. Yeah, that actually would have been terribly entertaining until Chewbacca got out his bow and shot the Swedish Chef. Yeah, Saturday Night Live or something should do a skit like that. That'd be hilarious now that I think about it. Yeah. Scott Moran says, been listening ahead. Max Lucado is very good. Scott, you got it, man. He's the best in the business. Marge Tansman said, we turned it off. Yeah, I can only make it about 20 minutes. I told myself, I got back from running last night and I turned it on and they were starting to hit on each other. And I said, fine, I'm going to wait till I cringe, 10 times. When I cringe 10 times, I'm turning it off. And I made it about 20 minutes, and I thought, I can't take any more of this. And yeah, it was ridiculous. So, all right, you got time for one last question. Who wants to throw in one last thing? Who wants to pick Pastor Tim's brain? It's your chance to find out about me. Thank you, Amy. She always reminds me to tell you to give us a thumbs up. If you could thumbs up this video, it helps the search engines find us if people are searching for. Appreciate y'all being here. I thank you guys so much for coming out to watch these and be a part of this. I look forward to being back with you next Wednesday. Give us some real thought to doing adding more nights of the week. We're not going back to 7 nights a week, but adding more nights of the week when the weather gets bad. And looking at what it is out there tonight, that obviously is not that far off. So I appreciate you guys. Thanks for being here. Love you all very much. And yes, I have gotten my flu shot. Yes, I have, because I don't mess around with that. So yes, flu shot is done. And as soon as there's a coronavirus vaccine, I'll be the first person in Auglaize County to go get it. So, all right, guys, appreciate you all. Love you all very much. And everybody have a good night's sleep. But before you do that, go wash those hands.